Hey, what's up? This is Sifu Kuttel, and in this video, we're going to be talking about Taiji footwear and how to find the right shoe for you. So let's get started. Footwear can really make or break your Tai Chi training. The proper shoe can aid in your mobility and your Tai Chi stepping, and the wrong shoe can hinder your mobility and ruin your balance. A good shoe can be almost unnoticeable in your Tai Chi training, but a bad shoe could be the direct source of your frustration, and at its worst, can even cause injury. Now, after over 2 decades of Tai Chi training and teaching, I've had the opportunity to test out a wide range and variety of footwork, from traditional Tai Chi shoes to boxing boots to skateboard shoes. And what I'm about to tell you may be a little bit of a surprise. There is no perfect Tai Chi shoe. That's it. End the video, roll the credits, we're done. I'll see you next time. Okay, so all jokes aside, there really is no perfect shoe. But rather than tell you what brand of shoe to buy in this video, I would rather give you what I think are some of the most important factors to consider when buying a Tai Chi shoe, so you can have this more specifically tailored to your needs and your training. So let's take a look at these factors. Now, there is a specific order to this, so let's get out our notebooks and jot everything down from the most important factor, and that is environment. Now, this is the most important factor because the location of your training and the terrain of it will affect the interaction between your footwear and the ground itself. So we're really looking at 2 things here. Is it grippery or slippery? You can look at this from the sense of indoors or outdoors training, but you really need to look at the surface of the ground itself, and then you can figure out the best shoe from there. Outdoor terrains typically tend to be grass or pavement or gravel or paving stones. So you have a variety even in that of what's going to be more on the slippery end and what's going to be more on the sticky end. Indoors, you might run into things like matted flooring or wood flooring or carpets or tiles. These tend to lean more towards the slippery side, but a lot of martial arts style mats can have a lot of grip to them. So now we need to look at the second most important factor, and that's the tread of the shoe. This is going to be the point of interaction between us and the environment. So it really comes down to how aggressive or non-aggressive the tread is on your shoe, and there is a right answer for this one: non-aggressive. You want a shoe that's not going to be super grippy, because this can hinder your pivoting, which can not only put you in bad positions, but if you don't pivot enough, it could have some torquing pressure on your knee when you're trying to change. It could affect your balance. And again, this is where you can cause injury. So with that said, I would say avoid completely tennis shoes and running shoes. They have the most aggressive tread, and it's going to work against you in your Tai Chi. Now also, I would suggest against Feiyu shoes, because even though they don't have as an aggressive tread, the sole of the shoe is very, very gummy, and that can be very sticky in the environment as well. Now that we've looked at environment and we've looked at the tread of the shoe, we've got to get to the next important thing: the sole. So to simply put it, the sole of your shoe should be flat. You want to have the best connection to the ground as possible, and unless you have a specific medical condition that requires some kind of arch support or something special in your shoe, do yourself the favor, lower that platform, get as close as you can to the ground, and go with a flat-soled shoe. We see this a lot in the traditional Tai Chi shoe. There is complete flat, whether we're looking at the cotton-soled or the rubber-soled shoes. And this is for a very specific reason. Again, with our pivoting, if you have arch support, you typically have a higher platform. That higher platform can end up in you not being able to complete your rotation or your pivot, and it also gives you a chance to fall off the platform. So you could end up rolling your ankle, and this can definitely affect your balance. Now, some traditional martial arts shoes have a really nice, soft, flat sole, but they don't have enough platform that goes completely under the foot. So I would be aware of that when you're looking at shoes, because that platform can also cause you to slide over the edge and lose your balance. And now that takes us to our next important factor, ankle mobility. Now, this is pretty much inherent in a low top shoe. You have a little bit more room for flexibility, whereas high top shoes can be a lot more restrictive. It can put your point of balance a little bit further back. It can put weight over where it shouldn't be. And even though it has more ankle support, it doesn't allow you to get into the proper Tai Chi positions. Now, with that said, something like a slip-on shoe might have too much room for movement. So you might end up completely slipping out of the shoe or rolling out because there's no support there. So keep in mind, if you do go with the low top shoe, make sure it has a good fit and some thickness around here. And that brings us to our last important factor, comfort. Now, this may seem a little bit strange. You may think comfort is the first thing you want to look at, but the way that we tend to look at footwear is if we put comfort first, if that meets our needs, we tend to not look at the rest of those factors. So although comfort is obviously a very important factor, I want you to look at the other factors first because those will have an effect on your comfort. The terrain, your environment, the tread of the shoe, the sole of the shoe, the ankle mobility, these all come into play to your comfort. So as you check these things off your list, once you get to comfort, it's almost a given at that point that you're going to find a good shoe. Remember, you don't want to suffer through your training. You actually want to enjoy it. So definitely find a shoe that meets all those needs and is comfortable. So where do you even start looking for Tai Chi shoes? Now, of course, you can go to martial arts suppliers and you can look towards doing the classic cotton Tai Chi shoe. Personally, these are my favorite to work with. I usually get the rubber-soled ones for working on wood flooring or working outdoors on asphalt or even gravel. And then indoors, I like to use the cotton-soled one. These can be pretty slippery, so just pay attention to that. If you have a smooth flooring or even mats that you're working on, you'll have a little bit more pivoting going on. These tend to be very comfortable. They are very much like wearing slippers while you're training. Otherwise, I would suggest something like a skate shoe, actually. They have a non-aggressive tread, they're flat-soled, and they allow that ankle mobility. I like to have the lace-up style shoe more than the slip-on because slip-ons are made to slip off as well, but it also depends on how comfortable that is or how tight the fit is. I've also found that indoor soccer shoes are really good as well. They don't have an aggressive tread. It's a relatively flat-soled bottom, and it has a lot of good support, even though it allows for that ankle mobility. So these are just a couple of ideas. I do also like the traditional Tai Chi shoes that you can buy that are the flat-soled versions. They usually come with a gum sole or like a lighter gum color or a black sole bottom. And when you're looking at something with a black sole or a black tread on the bottom, just be careful. They sometimes tend to leave marks, so keep that in mind. Now, there is one last thing I want to mention because I know it's going to show up in the comments otherwise, and that is barefoot training. So barefoot training is something that I would consider more of a modern luxury. We have clean places and safe spaces to practice on, like mats or carpet or indoor areas. When you look at traditionally, Tai Chi was taught in training halls and courtyards, so it was more of an outdoor setting, and people just wore the shoes that they had. So if you want to stick with that traditional ideal, I mean, Tai Chi was basically made in shoes, so it's not really something that you would have to take shoes off to get the full experience. One of the other things is, you have to take into the factors of is it going to be grippy or is it going to be slippy if you have your bare feet, because our bare feet can also tend to be pretty grippy on certain surfaces. So do keep that in mind. And also, you can still get that barefoot experience without losing your shoe by wearing some of those barefoot shoes or toe shoes. So there's still that availability there. And I'm not telling you whether or not you should or should not train barefoot. It's just that typically, and looking in the past, Tai Chi was in shoes. So that's typically why we still train in shoes to this day. Well, that's going to do it for this video. In the end, when you pay attention to the factors of environment, tread, sole, ankle mobility, and comfort, you definitely will find the right Tai Chi for you that's not only comfortable on your foot and good to allow you to reach those Tai Chi positions, but it's going to help your footwork and your mobility and make your overall Tai Chi experience a good one. So I hope you enjoy this video, and I'm always looking for new equipment recommendations. So if there's some shoes that work really well for you in your training, drop them down in the comments below. I'd like to try out some new footwear. Sometimes it goes really well. I find some really nice shoes. Sometimes it goes not as well, and I find out what is another important factor when it comes to looking at footwear. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next.